It's time for Expert Alert, your chance to ask questions and get answers from experts.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on WLOX's Expert Alert on all of our streaming platforms. This is a segment where you will get to ask the expert questions. So if you are not joining us on our Facebook page, go ahead and find your way over there if you want to ask questions. We don't have a phone number, you can't call in, but reach over here onto our Facebook page and put your questions down in the comments and I will see them and we will be able to ask our expert your questions. Today's expert, Justin Allen with eAgent. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You doing all right?
Doing great, doing great. A little wet this morning, but that's okay.
I was going to say, we got in, it was raining before.
Yeah.
I got in right after the rain. You got in right after the rain, so
yeah.
I got in right before the rain. We sandwiched the rain.
I think that's a good move, yeah.
So today we're talking about, typically with Justin, we're talking about all things real estate. Today we're going to talk about appreciation and not like employee appreciation,
right.
Though that's an important piece of what you do.
Yeah.
We're talking about appreciation for your assets, your real estate.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is that in real estate we call it appreciation, but when you look at the factors, when you look at the economy, they call it inflation.
Right.
Right. So it's a little different term, but I think it can be a very positive thing, especially when you own the asset, right, and it's appreciating in value for you. When you go to refinance it later on, you can pull money out to pay off debt or go to sell it and kind of move that equity forward into the next property, which I kind of call equity flipping. So there's a lot of things that I think agents do well. Every couple, 3 years maybe, it's the smarter agents sometimes will, especially earlier on in their years, they'll buy a property, fix it up over 2 or 3 years, and after 2 years they can take that profit tax-free into the next property, and then they just kind of flip that equity into the next property. And over 10 or 12 years you can have the house paid off. And agents do it, but anybody can do it.
Right.
Yeah, so
you guys have like the inside track.
Not necessarily, because we will only have the inside track to what's available to us, but once it goes into MLS and out to everybody else, it's everybody's, the ability to look at it and take advantage of.
So there's no secrets that you're using that that we don't.
Well, okay, so I will say I've been an investor since '96, so I take a different approach than most people. And when I'm working with either investors or maybe first-time home buyers or people buying a home, I want to make sure that their appreciation, they have the most chance for appreciation down the road, because if they're asking me to sell it later on, I want to make sure that it's a desirable house and they have equity in it, and there's there's some room to play with. If the buyer needs some closing costs paid or something like that, or needs some fix up, there's equity to work with.
That's it. That's the secret.
Yeah.
Making the right choice on the front end. That way on the back end, you're like, oh, look, I have all this equity.
You make the money on the front end, you spend it on the sale.
Right.
You make it on the front.
Because you're just diving back into another.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's a vicious but fun cycle, I imagine. That's why you do it.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, it can be very fun. It can be very rewarding for, having helped a lot of families, over the decades. So it makes for a great career, I think.
So when we're talking about appreciation, what are some of the, natural appreciation?
Yeah, so I was looking down some of the stuff I was thinking of in my head, and I was like, I got to write some of this stuff down because I'm not going to remember everything.
Absolutely.
So there's some different factors, but two of them mainly are going to be your natural appreciation factors, which are going to be like location and the size of the lot and those kind of things, and what's happening in the economy and what's going on around you. And then there's forced appreciation based on what you do to the property to force appreciation to make it more valuable, more desirable, more marketable.
Right.
So that's it.
And so when we talk about location, like we're very much a retirement community, but there still are a lot of people that are coming into the area that are buying based on school district.
Yeah, so there's a lot of factors that go into appreciation, and I tell my go-to for anyone buying a property, especially an investor, what everybody should be looking at is you want to buy a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom home on a slab in a good school district and in a neighborhood that's desirable where people want to live. That's really the main. Then it kind of gets into kind of some of the secondary factors after that. Does it have a pool? Does it have amenities? What else is in the neighborhood? Does an HOA? What is it close to? Those kind of factors. There's a lot of other factors that play in, but that's the main thing is you want to see a 3 or 4 bedroom, and 2, if it's a 4-bedroom that's 1,200 square feet, not as great as a 3-bedroom at 1,200 square feet because the bedrooms would be tiny.
Sure.
Right, so it's not always 4-bedroom. It depends on the size of the house and the flow of the house, the layout.
We stayed away from HOAs for so long here in South Mississippi.
Yeah.
We were able to like kind of skirt around them, and now they're everywhere.
Yeah,
It was only a matter of time.
Yeah, but there again too, I think there's some good HOA factors, and there's some ones that are, let's say, not so good.
Yeah, some pros and cons.
Yeah, and well, I will look at it this way. So if the HOA bylaws and the things that you have to adhere to are, 8 or 10 pages, that's pretty standard stuff, and it's the stuff that you want in the neighborhood. The people, kind of keep up their yard, and it's not that big a deal. But when you look like it's a phone book, whoo, that's a lot of fine print that you don't know. There's a neighborhood that I was reading through, and this was years ago, and it's still here. And it's unlawful, I guess, according to the bylaws, to have anyone, including a contractor, with their shirt off in the front yard.
I feel like that's just.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Where are they getting this stuff?
I will reserve my comments because they are not going to be productive. So, but like, at the end of the day, like it's oftentimes than not. I was just talking to one of our guys in the newsroom. We have 2 summers here, hot and less hot.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're outside doing yard work. You don't want to have your shirt on, then you should have that right.
Yeah. Like, where does that come from? Apparently somebody.
One bad apple.
Yeah, was doing it, maybe different than everybody else.
It makes me wonder what that one person might have been doing.
Yeah.
To make it, to ruin it for everyone else. And yeah, that's the thing. There's the good and the bad when it comes to HOAs, but unfortunately that's the name of the game now.
Yeah.
And so that's a piece of it. When you're talking about that, school districts, like we said, school districts are a big one. I also think, making sure that whenever I was looking at a house, I like to go into the neighborhood at like 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And just drive through just to see what
The
everyone's
vibe.
doing.
Yeah, the vibe of the neighborhood, right? And now I tell people to do that too. Go to different parts of the day. Go on the weekend and just drive through and just get a vibe of the neighborhood to see, like, if it's someplace you want to live, if people are enjoying the neighborhood, those kind of things. I think it's a little different to kind of, I don't want to say judge a neighborhood days, because it used to be like in the 80s and 90s, you have kids, riding around on bicycles and playing and stuff. You just don't see that anymore.
Because they couldn't come in until the street light came on.
Right,
that was
like
the
they
rule.
were forced to be outside. Well,
That's right.
that was that way, so that was kind of the thing. But I mean, there are other factors that play into not just the HOA, but I think depending on what you're looking for, let's say if you're a tennis player and you want to be close to the Bayou Bluff Tennis Club over here in Gulfport, there's neighborhoods that surround the Bayou Bluff Tennis Club. You can just walk over there or take a little golf cart and that kind of thing, and a lot of people do. But let's say that if you back up to the tennis club and there's got lights on throughout the night and it's in your backyard, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
Right? It depends
People
on what you want.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a lot of factors go into that. But I think overall, when you're looking at it as from a natural market conditions or natural appreciation, location, as they say, right? That's a bigger factor. And I think in general, I think if I was to be an investor, well, I am an investor, but if I was to just look at the coast in general, what would be a very good place to see natural appreciation is going to be south of the tracks, in walking distance of the beach, in a non-flood zone.
Where is that? South of the tracks in a non-flood zone?
There's plenty of that. It's probably, I would say 70, 80% is non-flood zone. A lot of people don't think that. There's a lot of it that's not flood zone.
Well, I'm only thinking of south of the tracks in Biloxi.
Well, there's a lot of areas on the beach that are in non-flood zone, that are beachfront, that are non-flood zone.
Seriously?
Yeah, on Highway 90 there. Yeah.
Wow.
But
Don't tell anybody that when you're driving through 90 in the middle of the rain.
Well, of course, yeah. But there's a lot of factors that go into that, and I think location is one of those. I think another thing when you're looking at, when I discussed this before about, it's affordable housing is kind of a bigger issue now, but you should be buying a fixer-upper. Take those 2 or 3 years as a period of time, put some new flooring in, do some painting, do some landscaping up front, and then build in appreciation, put some sweat equity into it, and then you'll have a better position when you go to sell. If you want to, or refinance later on. It's a much better situation. And truthfully, I think the best kept secrets some of the agents do, they buy into, and I promote this, is you buy in an area that's probably built in the 70s and 80s that needs some updating, but there are other homes in the neighborhood that have already been updated, have been sold at a higher price, so you can see if you're buying it at this amount, not updated, right, and this is updated, that's the spread for equity, right?
And those help for when it's times for comps. Those houses that have already been updated.
Of course, yeah. So you can see those. Now when you're getting, sometimes you can get some of the homes that are built maybe in the 90s, since we're getting kind of further on in age. But I think when you look at Sunkist as another good one, Windsor Park, Pecan Park in Long Beach, there's a lot of areas that were built in the 70s and 80s that have a lot of room for appreciation. And they're a great home, they're great areas, great school districts. To tell you the truth, we've got a lot of great school districts here on the coast.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with the money that the schools got after Katrina. Everybody rebuilt, there's kind of a new vibe, new revitalization, that kind of stuff, and I think we've done really well.
Especially, all of those houses built in the late 1900s. That's what my kid says. You were born in the 1900s.
Yeah, right.
Those houses that, like, I was in Sunkist in the late 90s that were built. This is when we start talking about forced appreciation.
Yeah, it's true. So actually, we built in the we bought in the late 1990s. No, 2002. We bought in Sunkist, and then ended up selling later on for, God, double what it was worth.
Right.
Now that I think about it. So you have the ability to force those appreciations. So like kitchens and bathrooms, I had to bring me a little list because I couldn't think of everything.
Yeah.
But focus on, I think when everybody does like a remodel, they want to do like super high end, or they do like the bare minimum, and it should be in the middle. You just should do these mid-range where it's not, you're doing laminate countertops or little square tile countertops and those kind of things, and carpet. Go put in the luxury vinyl tile, put in granite or quartz in the kitchen. It'll last, it's what people want, it's what they see as desirable, and it kind of brings more of a wow factor to the house when you go to sell it.
Yeah, and this is something that you don't have to buy the house and get it all done right now. This can be a process, because unless your goal is to only be in the house for a couple of years before you flip it, then you're going to have to do it all in the very beginning.
Yeah, and it's better to do it in the beginning because you can enjoy it for the 2 years instead of doing it at the end. Because I've done that too. And
then you're rushing to close.
Yeah, and it's not as enjoyable. You spend the same amount of money.
But then your fix-upper becomes a punch list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that makes more sense. But I think the layout is another thing. Adding in like a deck, enclosing a carport or garage can be a factor that can force appreciation. Not always, it depends on what's in the neighborhood, and like if you've got a 5-bedroom, 2-bath, you don't need another bedroom or 2 bedrooms out of the garage.
Right.
So you've got to play those things out based on what the rest of the neighborhood will comp out at and those kind of things. And anybody can call me and ask me about if they're looking at remodeling their home. Just get my opinion on what would be the best appreciation factors for them. And there again too, I think when people put in a pool, I think that's kind of a double-edged sword, because it can be very expensive in the front end, and it may not give you a lot of like appraised value at the end, but do you get enjoyment out of it?
Sure. And
then at the end, there's people that are just looking for homes with pools because they don't want to put one in, so they would want to look specifically for a pool.
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe there's things that you're going to have to, if you're selling your house, things that you're going to have to consider an allowance on: paint, a roof, air conditioning. If these things are getting, they say 30-year roof, but in this area with the storms that we have, a 30-year roof is never a 30-year roof.
No.
With the heat, it's just one of those things, and you just have to deal with it. But are those things that you also should consider? That isn't maybe necessarily forcing appreciation, but it's stopping you on the back end when it's time to sell it from having to provide allowances for those things.
It does. So, and also when you go to put a new roof on your home, you're going to get a better insurance quote if you let the insurance company know.
Sure.
So then that way you can enjoy the lower insurance rates, and then when you go to sell it later on, it's not going to be a 20 or 30-year-old roof.
Right.
And then too, the buyers aren't going to have $15,000, $20,000 to put on a roof, plus down payment, plus moving expenses and those kind of things.
And then when we're talking about HVAC, that kind of lends into making a house more energy efficient. We're talking about the 70s, 80s, 90s. You didn't have to do a lot to be efficient.
No, so that's one of the things too. So when you're looking at the HVAC, you're looking at appliances, you're looking at the windows. Those old single pane windows can be very inefficient. And two, the insulation is another factor too. If you haven't replaced that insulation in a long time and it's just kind of been just sitting there up there for a while, and maybe some squirrels have gotten in and created some problems, that's some things that. What's interesting is every time we do an inspection, like hardly anybody goes in the attic and checks stuff, but the inspector's going in and they find all kinds of stuff that you didn't even know that were fire hazards or anything else. So it makes a lot of difference when you can enjoy the the improvements while you're living there instead of having to do it at the end.
When I was looking at houses, the one I ended up in was a developer home, and it's so many cross beams. You can't really deck a brand new home now because they're just built differently.
Yeah.
But I was looking at a house in was it Edgewater Estates, and the whole attic was decked. And so you walk in here like there's.
Yeah.
It's like, how does this roof even stay on the house? Like, but it lived. It made it through Katrina. I mean, so it's one of those things where it's a different approach. What about those things that you think maybe are going to be great for appreciation, but they end up doing the opposite?
I think when people over remodel, they put too much into a property. They do additions when it's not necessarily a factor, or they maybe buy a lot or acreage next door, and it doesn't really, add more to the property. I think there's a lot of things, but normally it's going to be them over remodeling, and they're not going to get that money back.
Sure.
Because I think and two, if you're only going to live there for a couple years, it's not that you shouldn't be doing that. Now, everybody's got a forever home. Every time somebody buys a home, it's a forever home, right? For 4 or 5 years,
4.
Yeah, exactly. Forever,
Yeah.
That's about right. But I think that's going to be the main factor is they just over remodel. But there are some what I call appreciation killers, which if you buy the wrong home, it can be a money pit too. And I think some of the older homes on a piers that were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, sometimes 50s. In the 50s here, we started seeing more builders go on slab than it was on piers. But when you look at some of the older homes, they're inefficient. They've got older windows. They're up off the ground. They're more open for like the cold freezes, pipes bursting, and all those kind of things. Remember
it's
that?
All exposed,
yeah. And they're built well, but they're built well for a different time. Yeah. And what people are looking for, and also like the closets are really small, the kitchen's small, the bathroom's small, and just everybody's living a little different these days, and they're used to do a different layout, more open floor plan, those kind of things, more entertainment space instead of just being more functional.
Yeah, my parents, on their house, there was, the way it was built in like 91, 92, and there was a little dining area that had a sliding glass door and a sliding glass door. And then over here was the second bedroom, another bedroom, and it had a sliding glass door all leading out to the porch. And it was like, but this sliding glass door turned into French doors, and then these two turned into floor-to-ceiling windows. Huge upgrade.
Yeah.
It was, all of the natural light came pouring in. It was a big deal, and it looked so much nicer, but it took you out of that sliding glass door 1991 feeling, and just that change made such a huge difference.
No, it can be if they do it right.
Yeah.
Right, that can be a big difference. But if they do it wrong, they may have to take the hit later on.
That's right.
But one of the other killers is a flood zone. If you're living in a flood zone, or if you buy in a flood zone, you may get it for a great price, but it doesn't mean the appreciation is going to increase. And the whole reason for appreciation is that the more buyers are wanting your house, the more it's going to sell for.
Yeah.
Right. So the less buyers, the more specialized it is, the more unique it is, probably the less buyer pool, which means you're not going to sell it for as much as some other homes that are more desirable. And some of those factors are like the flood zone and the neighbors. The neighbors have a big factor to play in it too. The neighbors don't factor into the appraisal. If you've got a house next door with cars on blocks and the grass is this high, that doesn't factor into the appraisal at all. But it will affect the sale price because it affects the marketability and desirability of the neighborhood and what you have to look at every day.
You gotta go through the neighborhood and look. You gotta go look around.
Yeah, what was funny is we tried to sell our house in Sunkist, and the neighbor and he was an elderly gentleman, and he would mow his yard in a bright orange Speedo every Saturday morning. And I swear every time we would have a showing, it would be on Saturday mornings when he would be out on his riding lawnmower in his orange Speedo, and it would just be like
living his best life.
Yeah, I wish I could go over there and like, hey, do you mind if I just have somebody mow your yard on Fridays and we good with this? And it's just, I don't know, it's
if
hilarious.
You really like your neighbor and you don't want them to move, that is what you do, right?
Right.
We have a video?
Yeah. So this property here is a great property downtown. It's close to the aquarium, just a couple blocks off. I love the kitchen cabinets in this property. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. It's a vacation rental right now, and it's one of the things that I think for investors that makes a lot of sense. So you see these light blue cabinets and how coastal it looks. You wouldn't think light blue cabinets would be kind of cool and kind of modern, but the way they did this, it was built by a builder as well for himself, and ended up selling it to my owners now that are selling it as a vacation rental. And the biggest problem we've had is trying to show it while when people want to see it, but it's always booked for a vacation.
Because people want to rent it.
Yeah, so it's like
a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have, but like if you want it, for yourself, it's on 3rd Street in Gulfport, just a few blocks off. It's right behind Salute's Italian restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Right, so it's walking distance to Salute's downtown, the beach, all that kind of stuff, and it's 4-bedroom, 3-bath, which makes it a great vacation rental too. Because that's what people want. They want an in-suite bath and those kind of things. Very great for entertainment, those kind of things too. So it makes for a great vacation rental, but also for a great property people want to retire to and close to everything downtown and all that kind of thing. So it's been this property is priced at $449, but it's a very modern property and just can't beat it.
And the smell from Salute is complimentary.
It's complimentary. You don't even have to pay for that.
That's right.
That
and you don't gain any weight if you just smell it.
No, you don't. Now, you just can't walk down there every night.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Herein lies, there's the rub.
That's right.
So you see that phone number there, 697-4636, justin.eagent.com. If you have questions about your home, if you're looking to sell, if you're looking to buy, if you don't really know what you want to do yet, and you just want to ask a few questions, free answers to your questions, give him a call. He and his team can get you on the right path to finding that forever home.
That's right.
That you'll be in for
4, 8, 12 years, 4 months, whatever it is.
On
At
the
least
longer.
2 years. So
At least 2.
Yeah, that's right.
At least 2. That's the magic number, right?
That's right. We can help you out.
That's right. So give him a call and he'll get you on the path to that home ownership or just be able to answer your questions. We'll be right back here. Where are we? Kay and my producer, we're here next week. We're not here next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next edition of Expert Alert. So thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, Justin. Good to see you again.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us for Expert Alert. We'll feature more experts at the same time on Thursday in 2 weeks.